Hey Gav, what's on this week's How to English TEFL Pod?
Hi, we start with some updates about animal group names.
We talk about how to deal with a student who says, "There's a word for that in my language."
We discuss students' levels.
I describe how to set up a task.
We critique the question, do you speak English?
And our quiz of the week is all about words for words.
Finally, followers, please mention our show to your fellow teachers, students, classmates or school.
And pop over to our coffee.com/howtoenglishpod.
Now let's begin the show.
Welcome everybody, this is How to English. Teach and learn with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary.
Welcome back to Gav and Em's English How to English Pod.
How to English Pod.
With Gav and Em.
Well done. Yes.
We've started anew. We're back after 2 weeks of intensive teaching and learning, and I hope you've made some notes for the followers so they can reflect upon your journey of teaching and learning, Em.
Absolutely, Gav. 2 weeks. It flies by, doesn't it? Doesn't feel like 2 weeks. Feels like 2 days. For me, anyway.
It feels like a lifetime for me.
Oh,
but
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that because it's not so fun?
Just so much happened, Em. There were so many classes, so many students, a lot of homework to check, and it was all good.
Time's a weird one, though. I feel like when you're that busy, you don't have time to really know what's going on. You're just going along, caught in the moment. I find when time's dragging is when not much is happening, in my opinion anyway. Time is relative. Did you know that, Gav?
I think it is.
I've heard that. I think it's quite a profound concept, but it really is. So, what are we going to kick off with, Gav?
I recall we talked about, for our quiz of the week, last episode, animal group names.
We did. And you know what, Gav? I've realised something as you've told me that. I was right about one thing. It is a prickle of hedgehogs.
I was going to tell you that it's a prickle of hedgehogs because I checked it too.
Ha! We both fact-checked our own comments. And that's good to know, isn't it?
I didn't say you were wrong, by the way. I just didn't have that one in front of me at the time.
That is true. You didn't. And you said you knew it was porcupines. You weren't sure if it was hedgehogs. And I'm really happy to learn it is also hedgehogs.
I also recall that you were not particularly impressed with a zeal of zebras. That's why I've added to that a dazzle or herd of zebras.
Oh, there's 3 names for a collection of zebras.
That's right.
A zeal, a dazzle, or a common or garden herd.
That is absolutely correct. Of course, we didn't mention squirrels.
No, we didn't. Let me guess. Ooh. A frenzy of squirrels.
I don't have frenzy, but I do have a scurry.
Oh, I was getting there. It was on the right track.
Or a dray.
Oh, but isn't dray where they live?
But I think they're also collective noun is a dray.
Really?
Apparently.
They're all chilling in their crib.
And we didn't mention geese.
Geese, that would be a gaggle of geese.
And I must admit that is my favourite collective noun. Just to be a little bit more clear, Em, I'm guessing a group noun would be more than 2? Because you were a little bit unclear when you said it could be 2 or more. Because I guess if you see 2, you'd just say there's a pair.
Ah, okay. Pair is good for everything. Shoes included, and glasses.
That is also true.
Thanks for the clarification.
You're very welcome. Now, looking back over the week, Em, I have had some interesting conversations with my students. And a phrase that often comes up is, "Oh, we have a word for that in our language." Now, what might that be referring to, Em?
Oh, I came across one today, which was late morning. In some languages, for example, German, they have an after morning, which is a word that we don't have in English. It's not morning, it's not afternoon, it's...
Don't you mean pre-afternoon, late morning?
I can't remember in German what the word is. It's something like after morning.
That makes perfect sense, but sadly, no, we don't have that in English. And the students are always really disappointed and kind of shocked that we don't have these words that they expect, which I guess are common words in their language.
Yeah, and there are some words, for example, the classic one is Schadenfreude, that we took from German just because English doesn't have a word that really encapsulates that concept.
And what does Schadenfreude mean?
That would mean, if you were to say it in English, taking pleasure in someone else's misery. 6 words, Gav.
TPISEM. That doesn't spell anything.
It's not an acronym, but no, we don't have a word, we don't have an acronym. It's just not in our language.
Well, it is now, thanks to the Germans.
That's right, it is in our language. We just don't have an English word. We took the German.
Maybe sometime we should make a nice list of these and we'll use them in our quiz of the week.
I'm thinking quiz of the week, Gav. It's lending itself quite nicely.
Going back to my previous comment, Em.
Yes.
What I might do is just tell you a few words in English and maybe you're not that familiar with them, but we do have them in English. They just might not be very common words. So when your student says to you, oh, we have a word for that, and the teacher thinks to themselves, well, maybe we do, but I just don't know it. Let's see if Em knows it.
Okay.
For example, you get a few of these words coming up. A splat, a top rail. You might have your leg, your foot, your apron. Perhaps a front arm support. What am I describing here, Em?
I don't know. Medical equipment?
Let me give you a couple more. Back arm support, seat, arm.
Chair. It's parts of a chair.
These are all parts of a chair.
Okay.
These are not common words, are they, Em?
No, we don't. Well, seat we use. Back we use. Maybe the arm of a chair, but back arm support, front arm support.
My student did say to me, yeah, but the back of a chair. And I said, yeah, that's the back of a chair. And now I realise it's the splat.
Is it? I heard you say splat. What? Where does that come in?
Apparently
Splat.
that's the back of the chair.
Is the splat?
I think so.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So my student was confused that they might have to say the back of the chair. And I said, yeah, it doesn't sound great. Now I can tell them splat, except nobody else will know the word.
No one. I've never come across it. That is amazing. Splat. We've got a whole episode called Splat. It was about tomatoes.
It was about tomatoes, and it was called Splat, and it was a good episode.
Yeah, nothing about chairs.
Shall we keep moving?
Go ahead.
Now I'm going to give you some more words that are from a very common thing, and you need to just tell me what this thing is. Filament, sty, pistil, receptacle, ovule, sepal, anther. Em, you're looking quite blankly
I
at me.
am completely blank. I'm getting something round with a light in it, perhaps.
Shall I continue?
Maybe it might not help.
Stigma, petal.
That's a flower. I had a feeling it was flower when you said a couple of the other words, but it just sounded so technical.
It does sound very biological.
No, I thought it sounded really like something.
Scientific?
Yeah, like a piece of equipment. It sounded like a Bunsen burner or something.
Oh, or a projector or a bulb or something.
Yeah.
Ah, your bulb is going towards your flower bulbs.
It's in the ground, sprouting out.
I didn't mention stalk, but you would have got it. Definitely.
Yeah, I got it as soon as you said stigma,
Ah.
which must be something connected to the word stigma, as in something which is kind of mark of negativity towards someone or something, isn't it? A stigma. I wonder if there's a root there.
Excuse your pun.
Yes.
Now, those were male parts of flowers. Of course, your student probably would say to you, but what is that called? And you say, I'm sure it's got a name. I just don't remember at this moment. We've got another situation. Imagine you're in the middle of a conversation and the student says, well, we've got a name for that. Catch basin. Root intrusion into lateral.
Another root there.
Uncapped clean out. Maybe storm cross connection. Now, you might have a leaky problem with your lateral connection.
Is it parts of a toilet?
Well, this is a drainage system or a sewage system.
Okay.
So you've got your roof drain, you've got your foundation drain, you've got your manhole covers, etc., and your broken or cracked pipes.
What I'm getting from this, Gav, is you've been doing a deep dive into some people's jobs, getting really down in there with the lingo.
Down in the sewers.
Yeah. And so maybe if you get a student who has the requirement of discussing these very complicated systems with their colleagues or their bosses or their investors even, you would need to brush up on your drainage system, flower and
Chair lingo.
and chair vocabulary, wouldn't you?
To be honest, Em, these students are not deep diving in their opinion. They're just simply chatting on everyday things.
Wow, that's just skimming the surface of chairs and botany and sewers. That is quite challenging for a teacher to look quite calm in the face of these words coming at them that they've never encountered before.
Yeah.
But it's really important, isn't it, to just stop the students and say, wait a sec, sorry, I've never heard of a sanitary sewer lateral. Could you just explain to me what that actually is? It's really important to be able to feel confident to do that. And I think I come back every time to my early days of teaching when I didn't have the confidence to stop them. But you need to, because as soon as they start talking about
cross-connectional foundational drains?
You're going to need to know what the sanitary sewer lateral is and how it connects to that. I think it's all very stressful. Maybe.
But that is one of the advantages of being an online teacher or having the internet at hand. And you can do a quick search, pull up a picture, and get the student to talk you through it.
Yeah, exactly. That's really good. You get hours of discussion out of that. Thanks, Gav. That was interesting. So we do have a word for it after all. We have a word for everything, don't we?
Yeah, nearly.
Apart from Schadenfreude. Gav, this week I've been thinking about levels.
What kind of levels, Em?
What levels do you think I'm thinking about?
Water levels. Is it
No.
half full, half empty?
No, not that kind of level. No.
Are you talking about level testing?
Yes. Well, it's connected to level testing. It's a result of good level testing. It's the levels of the students in your class.
And what does that mean exactly? Because I have the feeling that one student might be very high level with their speaking and listening, but perhaps low with their reading and writing.
And that is the challenge we face every day when we get groups of students. It's not so hard when you've got a one-to-one because you can tailor your lesson accordingly. If the student needs extra practice with writing, you can focus that skill to get them on the same level for everything. But I'm talking about possibly that, where the students have got strengths and weaknesses, but also where they are mixed with other students who may have different levels of other skills, and they've all been put together, and they may or may not fit well.
That is often the case, Eb. So do you have any tips for us if we have a class of mixed level students, or are you suggesting they should be retested and put in a different group?
Well, I think you've got to keep abreast of it, I think. You've really got to monitor it. And at the very beginning, when you start a group class, be very
vigilant.
Be vigilant and pay attention, because that is your perfect opportunity. If it is the wrong group mix and maybe one of those students is higher or lower, that's the right time to tell your company, or if you're doing it yourself, maybe to put them into another group and say, perhaps this isn't the group for you. And it's best to do that at the beginning because then they haven't settled and everybody's still quite fresh to the whole thing.
I agree with you, Ed, but we don't always have the choice. That's the problem with that. Sometimes you just gotta knuckle down.
Of course, if there isn't another option, if there's no other class available, for example, sometimes companies do mix groups together and the teacher has to make the best of it. We've all been there. And then maybe you need to just rely on the strengths of some and the weaknesses of others. And
I'm not sure I'm going to rely on the weaknesses of others.
No, but you don't put too much pressure on those who aren't capable of some tasks, and you use their strengths to make a kind of good team together. I've had a good experience generally. I've had most classes who seem to come out at the similar level and they all work very well together.
And also some students don't test very well, but then you find in reality they're pretty level with the other students in the group.
Very good point. And to make sure that their level is right, you know, when you get a student maybe joining or a new group, look at the level that they've been given and check that they fit that level. Because if your company or you are required to write an assessment of the student after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they've been level tested at the lower or the higher end, and they've made progress, that's great. But if they haven't made progress because they've been put in as a higher level than they actually are, you're not going to make a lot of progress, and it'll look bad. It'll look bad to the student, it'll look bad to the company, and it looks bad on you.
It does. You, the teacher. This week I've been thinking a lot about some of the skills that teachers need, and one that I think is very, very important and possibly under-discussed is how to set up a task.
I'm a big fan of setting up tasks well.
I think you set them up very, very well, because I suspect your students are really ready to begin once they've been prepped. So would you like to take us through how you might set up this task that I'm going to surprise you with?
Oh, I love these spontaneous surprises that you give me that I haven't had any time to plan. I'd love to, Gav. Go for it.
That's good to hear. I'm going to send over a document for you. Let's imagine that your students have asked for exactly this kind of activity. How do you begin M?
And this is happening in the lesson as we speak.
Yeah, it's all spontaneous.
Right. What's the topic?
Food.
Okay, so I've opened my food folder and I've found this document that I forgot I had. Or I've emailed you, Gav. Emergency, please send food. Food worksheets, not food. I would actually ask you to send food too. That would be great.
That would be great if you could just contact somebody and they just send you some food.
They have that now.
Have they invented that already?
That is an app. You can just press a button. But I was thinking just food. I need food. But okay, I've got a food worksheet here.
I think you've just received it via your email client, your emergency food supply. It's exactly what your students want to talk about. How are you going to begin the activity?
I'm looking at my email now, Gav. I can see it. I'm going to download that. Food advanced vocabulary. That's going to be tricky.
This is from English File.
Oh, yeah, I know this page. We've got lots of lovely little pictures with a matching exercise on the left side. Well, you're not giving me a lot of time to plan this, so I guess I would look at the first section, which is match the words and the pictures, and there's a lot of pictures of kitchen equipment. So I'd probably spend a couple of minutes without sharing the worksheet or showing them anything. I would say, what would you find in a typical kitchen?
What would you find in your kitchen?
Or what would you find in your kitchen?
Hopefully not a mouse.
Well, yeah, that would be funny though, wouldn't it, if you had answers like that? So, yeah, Gav, what would you find in your kitchen?
I am walking into my kitchen right now in my head. I'm going to open the first cupboard I come to and I can see some pots and pans.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a list here and pans are there, but there are different kinds of pans, aren't there? What kind of pans have you got?
So you're indicating to the students you're now looking at a worksheet and you want them to guess what's on that worksheet.
Yeah, I'm just saying I've got a list of things here, actually, and you've said one already.
Emma quite liked the first activity, which was me exploring my own kitchen and telling you what was there.
We've moved too fast. Okay, you like that. We'll go back to that. Just freestyle. What's in the kitchen? Sorry.
Okay, I'm opening drawers, I'm opening cupboards, I'm getting out some cutlery, I've got a measuring jug, there's a set of scales. Is this what you've got in mind?
That's lovely, and I agree with you, actually. It's nice just to do that for a couple of minutes with absolutely no restrictions or restraints. So all this is going on the board or in the chat. Lovely. So then maybe then I would say, well, you've said pans, which is great, but what kind of pans have you got?
I've got a saucepan.
Yep, good.
And I've got a frying pan.
Excellent. Well, actually, I've got a list of things here, and those two are on there. So you've already said saucepan.
Can I see it, please?
Oh, you're a very demanding student. No, it's my list.
Can I have it at the end of the lesson?
Of course. Got a list here. I'm going to send you at the end, and you've mentioned a couple of things on there already. So maybe at that point, I would show them the page and we would do the matching together.
I guess you would make sure that they've already told you most of the things that are in your pictures or on your list.
Maybe, maybe not. I think as long as they've generated some really good vocabulary and they've exhausted their knowledge and they can't think of any more, Actually, what's on this list is a bit random anyway. There's verbs on there as well. So if you wanted to get into it, you might want to say, well, what would you do with that jug if you wanted a drink? What would be the action?
I would pour the
Yeah.
contents of the jug into something like a cup.
I've got that word pour, so that's another way. You could elicit everything, in fact. And then I would show them the pictures without the words, actually. I would cover the words, ask them what's in the pictures. What can you see in the pictures, Gav?
I can see a chopping board and a big cleaver.
Yeah, nice.
I might say that I could chop my vegetables with the things in picture number 1.
You're a really good student. You're giving me lots of nouns, verbs as well.
Did I mention it's a wooden chopping board,
You
Em?
didn't. This is what I'd love my students to do. Give me as much information as you possibly can. It's a thick wooden chopping board.
It does look a bit like a stock photo, to be honest.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Not really like mine, which is all covered in stains and slightly warped.
Well, that's also useful language.
I like that, Em. So what you did first of all was elicit as much as possible. I might just say there are a couple of things here, some kitchen equipment that the students definitely or almost definitely don't know. And I might teach that to them before I show them the pictures. For example, what's in picture number 11, Em?
It's a whisk, Gav.
It is a whisk. Now, I know you know what a whisk is, and you also know what to do with a whisk.
You whisk with a whisk.
Exactly.
But they've actually got the word beat, which you could say, well, there's 2 words, yeah.
Whisking, beating. I'm not expecting the students to know that, so either that'll be one of the pictures left at the end and the students will kind of guess.
Yeah.
I might pre-teach that one
In what way?
by saying, how'd you do your eggs?
Well, that's a big question. That could be anything. Fried, boiled, scrambled.
Very good.
Oh, it's nice vocab, yeah.
There you go. So we're building and building and building, and then I might say, well, of course, don't forget you need a whisk for this type of egg dish. Therefore, you pre-taught it. Then when you go to your picture, you've got less stress for the student because they think, I remember that word. It's in the chat somewhere or it's on the board.
I like that style because it isn't just, oh, that's the last one, it must be that. I think that's so forgettable. Rather than we had a conversation, you engaged me in something, and then I will remember that word.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
And then after that, you show them the pictures. You're moving forward. What's next?
So after you've matched those words together with the pictures, I would cover the pictures, go back to the list of vocab and ask the students to use those words in a sentence. And it would be even better if it was a sentence about what they'd prepared for dinner, breakfast in that day, week, relevant to them. But if they can't do that, then just to think of an example sentence.
That's a really good idea. So then they're just looking at the words. They're not seeing the pictures. But if they get stuck, maybe you can remember which picture to reveal.
Yeah, you could just show them. And if they're really high level or they're really confident and you think they've really got it, you could get them to make questions with those words rather than sentences. So I could ask you, what kind of oven do you have, Gav?
That is a really nice question, Em.
Yeah.
You might have a wood-burning oven. You might have an electric gas oven. It could be many different. Maybe it's a solar oven. I just don't know, Em.
It could be an Aga. Who knows? That's why we're talking.
Yeah. Em, I think you fully explained how to improvise a lesson just simply based on the worksheet. That is how to set up and run that activity.
Thanks for that worksheet. I think I might do that next week. It's quite a fun lesson.
It sounded really fun.
Yeah. Gav, would you mind if I bring up with the followers a conversation we had a couple of days ago?
Was it about teaching and learning English?
It was, yeah.
That sounds good. Why don't we share it with the followers?
It wasn't about teaching or learning, actually. It was about asking someone, do you speak English? When you're in a country that doesn't have English as a first language and you walk up to someone in a coffee shop or anywhere and you say, hi, do you speak English? And they may say yes or no. And then you say, can you tell me how to get to the station? Or can you tell me what's in this cake?
Are we then going to invite them to have an English course with us?
Well, that's what I remembered your point was. You said asking that question is a huge statement and judgment on and infers something about somebody. And
about yourself, if you're prepared to slightly embarrass someone with that question.
And I've never really thought about that before, and I liked that you made me think about it, and I think it's worth sharing with our followers just to see what they think about it too, because it's such a standard question, isn't it? Do you speak English? But as you said, you're assuming that means they've had lessons, or they've been taught English, or they've studied it. And what does speak English even mean? Does it mean they know a couple of words? Does it mean they can fully comprehend the entire dictionary?
Can they read Shakespeare?
Do they understand Friends on TV? Do you speak English is such a big question.
And if you're at a coffee shop, surely they just need to know the different types of coffees.
Well, I can tell you what the coffees are if that's what you need. Can you speak English? It's just not specific enough, is it? Or maybe can you tell me where the station is? Or can you tell me what's in that coffee? Or do you know what that cake is enough to say in English a question. It's either going to be an answered question or an unanswered question, isn't it? And so the answer is clear. If you don't get the information you want, then that person doesn't understand you. I don't think you need to say, do you speak English, as your first question.
You're saying lead with, where is the bus station?
Well,
Or-
lead with, hello, excuse me, where is the bus station? Maybe.
That's even better.
You can be polite. At least you're then preparing them a little bit for the fact that this is English and I'm saying hello and I'm saying excuse me and then there's a question that's coming.
That is a very good point.
Yeah. I think your point was good. So thank you for that. I never really thought about that. And I've had a lot of reactions that have been very embarrassed or, people say, oh, a little bit or not really. And then you find actually they're really good at English and they're able to explain everything you need. But it's just that first question, do you speak English? They feel like they don't want to say yes. Firstly, they don't know what you're going to ask and if they're able to answer it based on language or knowledge. But also, I don't know what my second point was. What's the second point?
Well, why do you need to know if they speak English if all you need is directions to somewhere?
Yeah, second point, really. What level have they got to? Well, that's not your business. It's, can you answer my question is really the question you're asking.
That's a good question. So think before you speak.
Always. Usually. Most times.
In our opinion.
Gav, I know. I know what time it is. It's time for...
Quiz of the Week. This week's Quiz of the Week, Em, has made me realise that I know nothing, absolutely nothing, about the English language.
Oh, I don't think that's true. Maybe this small niche of the English language that you've managed to find, but what are you talking about?
After visiting dictionary.com/e/cool words about words, I realised that there are so many things I don't know about the English language.
Cool words about words. Tell me.
We do know the word onomatopoeia,
Yeah, we do.
which is good. But there are plenty of these words that we don't know. So how am I going to make it into a quiz? That's what you're asking me, Gav.
Onomatopoeia like flip-flops.
Yes, or boom, crash, meow.
Yeah, words that sound like they are written. So how are we going to make this into a quiz?
I will tell you something of the word about words, and I may even give you some examples. And all you need to do is explain to me what this word about words means, and I will decide whether it's good enough to move on to the next word.
Let's try it.
For example, a loan word. And the examples are mariachi, volcano, and tsunami. What is a loan word, Em?
I think it's a word that describes one thing only.
It's a word taken from one language and used in a different language while keeping its same meaning.
Oh, loan as in bank loan. I thought you meant loan as in to be alone, L-O-N-E.
I think we've already talked about loan words on the pod, Em. All right, that was 0 points for
But wait a sec. What was it? Volcano? What else?
mariachi and tsunami.
I still think I'm right in that, but obviously that's not what it means. I think there is only one use of the word tsunami and, or maybe not. You could have a tsunami of work, can't you?
You can.
It's not very good though. I wouldn't use that though. I've fallen at the first hurdle, Gav.
Maybe I should have spelt loan word and sort of told you it's a bit like Somebody loaned it to us and maybe we'll give it back. But
Oh,
knowing us,
no.
we probably won't.
Yeah, well, no, that's the game, Gav. The game is what you've explained, and I got that wrong. That's it. I'll live with it.
Our second word about words is temesis.
Temesis.
I'll give you some examples. A whole nother, abso-freakin lutely, and some bloody where.
Well, that sounds like it's putting a word into the middle of another word.
It's a linguistic device that involves separating a compound word and inserting one or more other words between the different parts. Why would we do this?
Emphasis, usually.
It's big emphasis time on How to English Pod with Gavin M.
No, don't say that.
Abso-freakin lutely.
Yes.
Our third word about words is eggcorn.
Egg corn.
Would you like some examples?
Mm-hmm.
All intensive purposes, duct tape, and to whet one's appetite. W-E-T.
I thought these were malapropisms. I can never say that.
Malapropisms.
I thought these were what's that word?
Malapropisms.
Malapropisms, where you just get the wrong end of the stick and you say a word that shouldn't be in that phrase.
It is part of that. You're absolutely right. It's using the wrong word. But yeah, eggcorn is the use of an incorrect word in an expression. For example, all intensive purposes.
Should be all intents and purposes.
Duct tape.
Should be duct tape.
To whet, W-E-T, one's appetite.
That's W-H-E-T.
Wet meaning
Prepare or
sharpen.
Sharpen, yes.
Yeah, to sharpen your appetite.
Use a whetstone to sharpen a knife, for example.
Right, very good. Number 4 is an oxymoron.
Oh, I know this one.
Examples?
Can I think of one? No, I can't.
She spoke in a loud whisper.
Yes, friendly fire.
He was the wisest fool in the land. How about those vegetables? Are they fresh frozen?
Yeah. Nice.
Oxymoron meaning?
It's a sort of opposite of what it is.
Two opposite words.
Used together.
Just doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
Weasel word.
Weasel word. I love it.
I might know the answer to the question. This is likely to be a bad idea. The business will probably bounce back from the bad quarter.
So that's just stressing a certain word in a sentence to make it more emphatic. It would be written in italics in a book.
Quite possibly. It's an ambiguous word that makes a statement sound less...
less sure.
Forthright, powerful.
Okay, that's nice. So it's not just stressing it like, I did tell you that, or I am a good teacher. It's actually to show uncertainty. That's interesting. We do a lot of emphasis, but I didn't realise it was so nuanced.
Beautiful, isn't it?
What was that word again?
That's a weasel word.
Weasel, like the animal, weasel.
It's just weaseling into that just to make you a little bit less powerful.
Okay, nice.
Number 6, euphemism and dysphemism.
Oh, I've heard of euphemism. I haven't heard of dysphemism.
For example, a euphemism might be to, what's one for die?
Kick the bucket?
Pass away. A strip club might be...
I don't know.
A gentleman's club?
Is it? Oh dear.
And if somebody was in between jobs?
Oh, okay. Unemployed.
Whereas dysphemism may be to be 6 feet under.
Oh.
We might refer to cancer sticks. And somebody might be a quack.
So what? They're offensive? Or negative?
They're negative.
Okay, interesting. Cancer sticks being cigarettes and a quack being... I thought a quack was actually an official word. A doctor who's not perhaps professional or qualified.
I think it's used also just as an offensive word towards a doctor.
Right.
Euphemisms and dysphemisms.
Dysphemisms. Nice.
Number 7, synecdoche.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of these words. Synecdoche.
For example, she bought a new set of wheels.
Uh-huh.
The Sultan had an army of 10,000 spears.
Huh?
My dad had a lot of hungry mouths to feed.
These sound like idioms, but I guess they're more exaggerations.
It's a figure of speech, Em.
Figure of speech.
So when I say a set of wheels,
Car.
a car, so a set of wheels, it's not literally just a set of wheels,
No.
because that'd be rubbish. How would you drive around the corner in a set of wheels?
It'd be complicated, yeah.
And the Sultan having 10,000 spears,
A lot of military ammunition
but not a lot of people to hold the spears and possibly attack their neighbours.
Uh-huh.
And saying you had a lot of mouths to feed.
Hungry people in the family or dependent on him.
It's not just mouths, is it?
Oh, no.
It's the entire body.
Okay, I see what you mean.
So these are figures of speech.
I'd like to know how these are different from other figures of speech, but it's very granular.
Well, in this case, a synecdoche
You'll need to practice that.
Is a figure of speech in which a part of something is used to represent the whole.
Right, well that is very specific, isn't it?
And what's number 8? A zeugma.
Zeugma. Or zookma.
Zeugma.
No idea.
Let me give you examples. He closed his door and his heart to his sister.
Oh.
I broke the record and my foot during the race. She caught 3 trout and a cold.
I don't know. Putting things together in a kind of sentence that matches 2 things into one action.
Also called a solipsis, is a rhetorical device in which one word is used with 2 other words so that either the meaning changes with each word or only one of the uses makes sense.
Well, we all do it. Do we know we're performing?
Zeugmaring.
Zeugmaring. Wow. Zeugma's great. I love the last one. She caught, how many? 3 trout and a cold?
3 trout and a cold. Can you explain again just what is zeugma?
Well, you catch fish with a fishing rod and you catch a cold. So the word catch fits with fish and illnesses.
It just draws it all back together into one coherent sentence, Em.
Love it.
Our 9th word for words is snow clone.
You're making these up.
I'm not, honestly. They're from a very reputable website, dictionary.com.
That is very reputable. Snow clone, not snow cone.
Shall I give you some examples?
Yes.
X is the new Y. For example, well, have you heard this expression before?
No.
Orange
is the new black.
Yeah. Or you might say to X or not to X.
Oh, you mean X as in fill-in word there? Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that before. Like 50s is the new 40s.
To X or not to X?
That is the question.
And what would you put instead of to be or not to be, to X or not to X?
To eat muffins or not to eat muffins? That is the question.
That is a very good example. In space, no one can hear you.
Scream.
Or you could say...
Fart.
That's what I was going to say. So this is called a snow clone.
Which means it can be universally used as a concept. We all know what it means and you can replace the words to match whatever the situation.
That's it. Your X and your Y's can be whatever you decide.
You needed to explain that a bit better. X is the new Y. I was thinking instead of using Y, we could say it with an X. Like instead of yes, we could say yes. Because X is the new Y.
That doesn't work.
No, I've never heard that. That would not catch on.
You are going to love the final word for words.
Yeah, I'm loving them all so far.
Number 10, kangaroo word.
Oh, that's got to be something to do with jumping.
No.
Oh, really?
I will give you the example words and then possibly some more clues and then see if you can guess it. But no, it's nothing about jumping.
All right.
One example is encourage.
Might need a bit more than just that one.
And the second word is catacomb.
Kangaroo words. Encourage, catacomb, and...
Chicken.
Chicken. Huh. Is it something to do with the sounds of these words?
It's not.
Something to do with the spelling of these words?
No.
Anything to do with the meaning of these words?
Sadly not.
Really? What's left?
What was the first word?
Encourage.
Now, if I say the word urge, have a look at the spelling of the word encourage. Can you find urge in there? I can see your spelling in the air now. Does encourage contain the word urge?
Yes, but not C-O-U-R-G. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, it does.
How about catacomb? Does it contain the word
cat?
tomb?
Tomb. Chicken?
Yeah, this one got me.
Hen.
Wow.
No.
So they all
Have other words in the word that
Which-
become shortened to, or lengthened. Lengthened, maybe. Urge?
Is there any connection between those two words that you got?
You mean encourage and urge? They mean the same thing.
They do. How about catacomb and tomb?
They're the same thing.
And chicken, hen?
Almost the same thing, except if you're talking about a cockerel. But yes.
Kangaroo words. And kangaroo is also a kangaroo word.
Oh, because it contains the word roo, which is informal for kangaroo.
You've got it, Em.
I feel like I'm in one of your lessons right now, and I've just had a revelation.
So a kangaroo word is a word that contains its own synonym within it, like how a kangaroo carries a smaller kangaroo in its pouch.
I want the job of naming words that describe words.
Em, if only you could be as clever as these people, because not only does the word contain the word, but the smaller synonym's letters are also spelled in the correct order in the larger word.
Right.
Isn't that fascinating?
I've got a lot to think about now.
You've got a lot of spelling to do.
Definitely.
And maybe find a few more kangaroo words before our next episode.
They're out there. You've just got to find them.
Em, jump to it.
Never thought of it. Encourage and urge. Oh, yes. Jump to it. I will. Like a kangaroo.
Precisely.
Sorry, I was a bit late with that.
Em, we've come to the end of the show, and I can observe or see, which is a kangaroo word. Did you get it?
Aha. Yes, Gav.
And to end the show, or
To not end the show.
that is the snow clone. And finally, Em, before our audience lose their patience and nearly an hour of their lives, that's
A zoogma, Gav. A zoogma. You're never going to get that hour back.
Catch you next time, Em.
Abso-freakin lutely.